Today, nobody has an idea on what to teach young people that will still be relevant in 20 years' time. Let's discuss. Hello and welcome to the In a Nutshell podcast with myself, Andrew Miles Davis, and my co-host Chris Branch. This is the daily 10-minute podcast where we take out all of the techie talk around generative AI and focus on what the everyday person, content creator, and marketer wants to hear. Now, I've only got 10 minutes, so we can only focus on one subject. And today we're going to talk about a quote that was said by the author and AI expert, I should say, Yuval Noah Harari. And that is the quote that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, which was, today, nobody has an idea on what to teach young people that will still be relevant in 20 years' time. So, Chris, initially, what's your first thoughts on that quote?
Yeah, so I come from like a university lecturing background, and I always found that the education system was far behind what I experienced in actual real life. So I did music technology as my university lecturing days, and I worked in the industry prior to that. And I found that the syllabus was at least 2 to 3 years behind what was actually experienced in the industry. So for him to say that to teach people in 20 years, you're going to have to add another 20 years potentially to what the industry is actually doing, so it's really difficult for education to even keep up with real life right now, let alone in 20 years time. So yeah, not shocking at all. But I think his quote is more generally about the rapid change that we're all going to experience and the fact that no one has any idea about how it will affect society.
Yeah. I think with this quote, to add some context to it, was about AI. I don't think, for example, some of you might be thinking, yeah, but maths or English or science, yeah, that will obviously always be there. I think it's more about some of the things that we teach people today in AI and to an extent marketing or digital marketing that might not be relevant. So search might not, the way we see search now, traditionally SEO, that might not be relevant in 20 years time. Or when we look at our phones, the way the phone is now, that is probably, well, not probably, that won't be what it's going to be like in 20 years time.
Not.
So it's difficult to say certain things. So if we look at our situation now, both of us, we both have had children recently. Yeah. In the last couple of years, we've both become fathers. And I'm looking at my son and I'm thinking,
yeah, right.
All of the stuff that he, like, again, it's like, what am I obviously you've got core fundamental things as humans, but some of the stuff that I'm seeing him do now, I'm like, it's not going to be relevant in 20 years time. Or some of the stuff that I'm seeing now, I'm thinking, imagine this in 20 years time, like AI music generation or AI video generation, or just ChatGPT, or if you want to go even deeper into it, robots and AGI and all of this type of really like scary stroke exciting stuff. So yeah, it's interesting, this quote, because obviously keeping it connected to AI and Gen AI, I think he's right.
I think he's right too. And I think every one of our kids is going to be, what's their mobile phone generation moment? We were the mobile phone generation, me and you. We were grown up at a time where mobile phones weren't in our entire childhood, but then they might have been for you actually, because I basically was given my first one at a certain age, though. And
I was 17 when I got my first phone.
Well, there you go. So, you could have had one, though, potentially when you were younger. But at the same time, like, I think we both went through that moment of 15p a text message, and
50,
then
50p,
15p, then it was contracts, then it was all of these. So the way that we accessed information fundamentally changed through a device that was given to us as children so that we could browse the internet. And our parents never had that before. And really, phones didn't start out with connecting to the internet, did they? It was just basic apps and Snake the game and yada, yada. Now, what will our kids' moment be? We've seen this rabbit introducing, which is, fundamentally a device that acts as your assistant, and it's not going to make them need Google. They're
Have
not.
you heard the reviews about it?
I I've seen interesting stuff about it, but what it is like the first step in a different direction to browsing information. You know, that's what I mean by it's a fundamental change in society. Like our kids will no longer think in the same way that they're going to be like, "What's a floppy disk?" They're going to be, "What's Google?"
Yeah. Unless Google, obviously Google will, I think 20 years time Google will be there, but I just don't think it will be doing like dominating search like it used to. It would have just evolved into whatever it is Google will be. But do you feel that it is the first time in human history that no one knows what the future will look like?
No, I think if you look even just into the short past since the Industrial Revolution, we've pretty much had this same intuition. You know, as soon as we invented like steam engines, things accelerated at a rate that they'd never done. And I actually, it was a bit of a geeky moment, but I was watching a Roman podcast, and it was about like, you know, the golden age of the Romans and why they never actually formed a technological society. And it's because innovation just wasn't valued. It wasn't the driving force of the economy like it is in today's world. And so now we're in an economy whereby innovation is the thing that society benefits with billions of dollars. Then we're going to see a constant rapid growth in this regard, and nothing can stop it.
Yeah, I think what's key is that, again, going back to that quote, it's teaching people like fundamental things that's been there throughout history. So like when I do a lot of my training, you know, because I've worked in digital more than 20 years, so I know what 20 years looked like back in 2004. I always look at what was there then compared to now. You know, obviously technology has changed, the way people behave has changed, but certain things hasn't changed. You know, from a business point of view, you still need something to sell. You still need to sell it somewhere, and you still have to sell it to someone. These are fundamental things. So these are the things that it's important to teach people. Technology will change. 2004, when I was working at the BBC at the time, from a digital point of view, it was all about going to websites. It was all about forums. It was all about chat rooms and things like MSN Messenger. That was kind of like, it was actually gone away from chat rooms and more towards MSN Messenger. That was kind of the big things. From a mobile phone point of view, I think WAP technology was there. And I definitely ringtones was there. You know, that was a big thing, ringtones at the time. So when you really kind of move forward 20 years, it's still, the fundamental is still there. You know, you still need to connect to the internet via some device. Now, in 20 years' time, will that device be the phone? I don't know. You know, you'd mentioned about the Rabbit, which is some little device which you can pretty much do everything you can on the phone on these devices. I personally don't think that's the one. I believe that's going to be more like laser discs to music. And what I mean by that is going from audio cassettes to CDs to MP3s. You had other ones in between, and Laserdisc was one of them, and it just didn't like work.
Well, it's a bolder idea because it's essentially adding a physical product into something that doesn't require a physical product.
Yeah.
Because what it does is essentially access information in a different way because it acts as your assistant. So, like, I think the idea of it is to have it like, you know, if you ever knew Pokedex from Pokemon, it's kind of like that. It's like a little device that you can reference all of your information, like what your collections are and all of that stuff, right? So in a way, it was seen as like a toy so that you could have a physical experience and make it probably more grounded, you know, than just it being an app on your phone where you'd be less like requiring to use it all of the time. But I agree, like the fundamental here is information. We all want information and we all just want a different way and a better way to organize it and get it. And this
More
is what that
convenient way,
device solves. Yeah, convenience, convenience, convenience. So we will see it go towards convenience, but is the Rabbit the right path? You say no, I agree. Probably there's going to be some better way than a big bulky device like that to have to access the information through.
Exactly. So in a nutshell, going back to the quote, today nobody has an idea on what to teach young people that will still be relevant in 20 years. Yes, but no. The fundamentals will always be there. And if you focus on fundamentals, and if you start trying to predict 20 years that's not connected to the fundamentals, you're guessing.